The NDP leadership race has 4 great candidates. I truly believe that. Jagmeet is very charismatic and has proven himself to be capable of the kind of mass outreach the NDP will need to do well in 2019, especially in large population centres. Nikki represents the power of pure leftist grassroots activism in the same way Jeremy Corbyn does in the UK. And Charlie Angus may come off as the most quote-unquote establishment choice, but then when you look at his policies for things like cooperatives and housing, it's clear he's no right-winger. And he easily comes off as the most down-to-earth, regular Joe sort of candidate as well. However, in my opinion, one candidate has stood clearly above the rest from the very start, and if you've been paying attention, you probably know who that is. This video is my official endorsement of Guy Caron for the NDP leadership, a man who has continued to impress me ever since I first learned who he was earlier this year. It started with his progressive basic income plan. I've heard it criticized as not a real basic income plan because it's not using the universal model. However, I reject this, as the term basic income to me means a guarantee that all citizens have a certain standard of living through monetary aid from the government, and that's exactly what Guy's plan does. This proposal, from what I can tell, was the first truly revolutionary idea discussed in this race. Since then, there have been a few others, such as decriminalization of all drug possession and Charlie's housing plan, but nothing struck me off the bat as being truly transformative as a guaranteed basic income. However, my support for Guy goes far beyond that one policy. He really cemented himself as my first choice the day he announced his plan for electoral reform. This is an issue I care deeply about, and he not only was the first candidate to release a plan, but released a plan that it would be impossible for any other candidate to seem better than, by promising it as the first bill of a government under his leadership, as well as a hard requirement for him to support any other party in a confidence agreement in the case of a minority government. Other candidates have since spoken on the issue, with varying degrees of importance, but by speaking about it as early and as strongly as he did, Guy put himself forward as the obvious choice for electoral reform activists. Since then, he's also released plans for tax reform, a transition to a green economy, a labor plan, a plan to move toward reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and an electoral plan for Quebec in 2019, and every plan is filled to the brim with specific details to accomplish these goals, and all with the associated costs. While other candidates have gone into great detail as well, Guy's policies are on a whole other level in this realm. And he's able to do this because he truly understands the issues facing Canadians. And not only that, but as an economist, he understands all the necessary aspects of his plans and lends the NDP economic credibility, something the party has always appeared to lack in the eyes of regular voters. But despite this, his explanations don't go over people's heads. When Guy explains what his plans are, how he'd implement them, why they're necessary, and the effects they'd have, he's shown that he can do so in a way that people can understand. In this sense, he comes off to me as the candidate I would feel most confident in seeing debate Elizabeth May, Justin Trudeau, and Andrew Scheer. Guy is a bridge builder. He's the candidate who can unite progressives in Quebec with progressives across the rest of Canada. He's the candidate who can present a clearly left-wing platform without looking divisive through demonization of his opponents. When he calls out another candidate, it's always on policy, and he never resorts to claims like, "I think you're in favor of seniors living in poverty." And unlike the other candidates, he understands that you can both respect Quebec's right to pass its own laws and govern itself in matters of provincial jurisdiction, while not personally being in favor of every law it passes. Like Jack Layton, he understands that recognizing Quebec's national character is crucial to electoral success, and clearly presents himself as able to do that better than his opponents. But getting away from those specifics, I support Guy because he inspires me. At the start of the race, he had basically no name recognition, and now he's worked his way up to be a real contender. And he did so through proposing bold, progressive policies that will benefit Canadians and the world as a whole. He had the courage to stand up for a policy none of the other candidates appear to support, and not back down even under constant strawmanning and misrepresentation. And yet, he remained likable the whole time. He's never gotten aggressive in his questioning of the other candidates. He and his campaign have maintained a positive message throughout the race, and he demonstrates a wit and charm that will appeal to people across the country, regardless of their backgrounds. It is for all these reasons that I support Guy Caron to be the next leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada, and I hope you all feel the same.